Das brauchst du mir jetzt nicht zu erzählen. Da habe ich schon ganz andere Sachen erlebt. Da muss ich jetzt noch...
Hey, jetzt sind wir die Tommys.
It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary.
Die Platte wird doch ihrem weltanschaulichen Unterbau nicht schaden, 1WO.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Trey's Models. On this episode, we'll be doing a 1/72nd scale Sopwith Camel from Airfix. And this kit was released in 1973. It was kit number 01009-01. And originally was released back in 1957, so it has some issues. Being as how this is a very old kit, there are some fit issues, but nothing you can't handle with a little perfect plastic putty. It's water-based, it's very easy to work with. Probably spent roughly about an hour getting some of the fit issues on the bottom. Pretty good sized gap at the bottom wing to fuselage joint area, and the seam up at the top spine needed some attention as well. After that was on, I went with some plastic surface primer from Tamiya, and just came back and went back over the plastic because that does tend to shrink just a tad. But if you hit it with this Tamiya primer, it seems to alleviate that issue. Another area of contention was the wing to the fuselage joint at the top of the bottom wing, right to the fuselage area. There's a pretty good sizable gap there. There's also a hole where the landing gear comes through from the bottom that we're changing the landing gear up a little bit, more on that later, so I did have to fill that hole in. Okay, we got the gaps sorted out. We're moving on to some assembly. Tail feathers went on without much fuss. Did need a little bit of attention back in that area. The big issue on the bottom was getting the gap correct without messing up the wing area. So I used two number 11 razor blades, some masking tape, and some flexible CA to come back over the gaps I had already filled to reinforce and clean up more of the areas there, so there would be less of a transition there. Took a little bit of trying, a little bit of wet sanding, but I was able to clean everything up and still preserve the rib stitching detail on the bottom of the wing. After that, to get the engine and the rest of the struts in place, best to do the strut supports on the bottom wing first and use some slow setting glue. I prefer the Tamiya. Let it sit, and then while it's still not completely hardened up, you can position the top wing on top of the strut supports and the cabane supports, and with a little patience you can get them lined up in the holes, get everything trued up. Before everything sets, make sure that you align the top wing with the bottom wing so that there's not an angle or a twist in it. Okay, probably onto the most difficult part of the build was the landing gear. The kit parts were broken on the sprue, and even if they weren't broken, they were too flimsy really to use. So what I did was I substituted a hollow brass tube and then put a piece of guitar string through that for the main axle. And then I used more guitar string, bent it to shape using what was left of the plastic landing gear for a shape guide. And then used flexible CA glue to put the supports onto the axle, making sure everything lined up and was true. And then after that, it was a matter of fixing it onto the fuselage itself with some more flexible CA glue. And it worked out a lot better than what would have been a nightmare. After we got through with the nightmare of the landing gear, we moved on to the painting. There's a mixed bag of testers and Model Masters enamels, and then a light weathering with some of the landing gear wash from AK So this is obviously a captured scheme. It was originally flown by Sub-Lieutenant Jean Joens, hope I'm pronouncing that right. He was forced down by Lieutenant Karl Degelau, again, hope I'm pronouncing that right, of Jasta 7. It was then repainted and flown by Otto Kissenberg of Jasta 23B, who claimed he shot down an SE-5 in this Camel for his 20th aerial victory. This has been debated, can't really be verified. But later on a takeoff, the engine failed, and Kissenberg was badly injured, ending his flying career. So the Sopwith got its revenge in the end. But the Sopwith Camel F1, this one was a Clayton and Shuttleworth build. Its speed was 115 to 117 miles an hour, with a wingspan of 28 feet. Had a range of 301 miles or an endurance of 2.5 hours. The engine was a Clerget 9B, developing 130 horsepower, and it was armed with 2 Vickers machine guns. The first prototype flew December of 1916.
Troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile.
Well, thanks for watching. Please hit that like button and subscribe, and I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Y'all be good to each other, and we'll see you on the next one.